So, the art of writing manga. Where did I begin? 7 months ago, I watched a show. It's a Netflix show that's called Bloodhounds. It's a Korean show, and it's about these two guys. And they're really good friends. They're two boxers, and the story is basically about these two main characters just making their way through their world. And while watching this, one scene, very simple scene, a scene in probably like the third episode or so, they fought people in a subway. Just like you've seen this 100 times, in 100 action movies. They were fighting through tons of bad guys, then they stood there, the last two people alive, right? Everyone was dead. And this spawned inspiration, sparked the thought process. There was, what if these guys, all these small bad guys that had gotten knocked out, what if their boss walked into the subway and saw it all? He saw these two people that he was willingly facing, right? With just a pool of bodies around them. And I was like, how would he react to that? How would they react to that? And with that, I just paused the show, and I started writing scenarios. I wrote that scenario. I wrote another scenario, and then another one. And as I kept doing that, these characters, these two main characters from the show, evolved from whatever the Netflix Bloodhounds author meant them to be, to my own, right? Because I'm not them. And through every scenario I put them through, I'm gonna have my own answers. And through that boy in the middle, Dafft, and the top right guy, Bart, they got created. These two got created by me just putting two random characters in scenarios until they evolved into completely different characters. And that was the start of that 7 months ago. Now, did it look like this 7 months ago? Hell no, it looked like this. I'm not an artist, right? I'm a writer. I know how to write, but drawing, it's kind of hard. But did that stop me? No. I was like, I'm gonna make a manga, bro. I don't care what happens. I got this idea, I got the inspiration, now I gotta make it happen. How did I make it happen? Well, that leads to tip number 1. Don't be afraid to ask for help, right? This is Kabo, top right. She's an amazing artist from Japan who I had the pleasure of working with. I wrote that script for Dafft. Those 3 hours after I'd paused the Netflix show, and the day after, I just sat down and I just created all the characters, the entire story, made a really, really in-depth beginning to the story. I took a little draft of Dafft and I sent it over to one of my favorite artists, which is Kaba, which, it's a lot of, you have to love your work and be proud of it to be able to send it to people, right? Most people, if you send this to artists, you probably have to send so many. But while I was writing the story, I actually had Kaba in mind. In the back of my mind, I was like, her art style is perfect for this. We worked before, so I'm a musician, so they've made album covers for me before. So luckily, she liked the draft enough to be like, yeah, let's do it. Let's work on this manga together. So now I work with Kaba. That's what it looks like what it does today. Right? Second tip. This is the first tip to approach to writing. Skip the filler. Okay. I know that some people say they like filler. I am not one of those people. And a lot of times, if you read a manga, you probably love it, and then the anime comes out, you watch it. So much is cut. So much that they've just taken out. And that feels sad for me sometimes. But I also see the point of it, right? To make an anime as famous as a lot of them are, they have to just get to the meat, right? They get to the bone of the story, and they just keep it engaging. And me as an anime watcher, I love that shit, right? I like the filler, but to get to the nitty gritty, that's how you truly keep an audience. So I've taken that to heart, and I skip the filler. I go one step, right? I don't wait for the anime adaptation. I just skip it straight away. I just cut it out. And that's a really good way to keep readers hooked, right? Because sometimes I've done sketches and stuff before I send it to Kaba, and I've shown people, and I'm like, what do you think? Always, the more catching stuff is the stuff that just moves the story along, right? every text bubble has to have meaning, and every panel has to move. Important. Inspired by everything. This, just like the Bloodhounds thing I talked about earlier, that was a simple scene. Like, there wasn't that much thought that most people would put into that scene. It's just, oh, he fought a bunch of guys, they got out of it, they're good, they keep watching. Instead of pausing and thinking, what happens next if so-and-so happened, or this and that. And so, be willing and open to take inspiration from everything, everything. That's important for me, even if it's, oh, I saw a nice artwork out here. That could be a cool way to convey a story in this and that way. Or if I hear a good song, I might be like, what if I wrote a story about what the song is about? Be inspired by everything. Actually, my favorite story, or one of my favorite, I can't pick, they're my kids, but one of my favorite stories ever, it's a story that was inspired by a movie I don't even remember today. Right? I watched a movie about these five bandits, and they went, during the day, they went out and they killed hundreds of people. They just killed and killed, and because it's a movie, just good music playing, they're just doing their thing, right? But then, at the end of the day, they came to a campfire, they sat down, there was only four of them, one had died. One bandit, they killed hundreds, but at the end of the day, one of them was dead. And that was tragic. That was like, oh my God, one of us is dead. And that made me stop again, just like Bloodhounds, and be like, what's up with that? They just killed hundreds, and now one of them died, and it's a big deal. But if we think John Wick, for example, he kills hundreds, no one cares. If he would die, oh shit, that's sad. So, with that in mind, I went out and I wrote an entire story just based on that one scene, the bonfire scene. And one of my favorites ever, right? So, inspired by character motivation. Before I even start on the first page of anything, right? Anything that I'm thinking of finalizing in the story, I have to know the characters. I have to know them in and out. What's their goals? What do they like to do? Why do they wake up? Like, how are they gonna interact with this character that I have in the story? All of that has to be in the back of your head before you start. And how do I get there then? Scenarios. Just like I talked about earlier, put your characters into scenarios, because that will build them, that will get you to know them, that will get you to understand how they are in the grand scheme of the story. Really important. So just, you never tell the readers, right? You never straight out be like, this is that character, or so. It's show, don't tell here. You have to just do their actions, make the readers understand who is Height over there? What's his deal, you know? Only through his actions, his vibe. So get that down before you ever write a page that's finalized. Next up, study manga flow on panel. If you want to make music, study music. If you want to learn martial arts, study martial arts. This is no different. And some people, they like to go in and experiment and so on, which is fine. That's great. We need experimentation. Because that breeds new art. That breeds new cool stuff for us to enjoy. But, just like in music, learn the foundation. Learn the foundation. Because when you know the base, when you know how it works in the simplest way, you can take that. You can add stuff on top of it, you know. They didn't make pizza. They made bread, and then they made bread with butter, and then they tried stuff, and then finally we had pizza, right? And pizza's fucking awesome. But you have to know how to make bread before you can make pizza. So, study. Study, always. Whatever art you do. Then, write for the sake of writing. This right here, this is actually the story that was based on the bandits. This is the story I ended up making. One of my favorite works of all time. But it will probably never see the light of day. There was some issues in the making of it, and it just didn't go anywhere. And some people might think that's sad. It is. It never got to see its final form, the form that I imagined it. But, do I regret doing it? Hell no. Like, just writing this down taught me so much about storytelling, it taught me so much about character building and so on, that I use every time I write now, right? For every work you finish, you get insight, you get better, you get new tricks you can use in your stories to make cool, just whatever, twists and turns, character relationships in the story, just everything. Every time you write, you'll get better, I promise. So write for the sake of writing. Never feel like this has to be perfect, right? Because it's never going to be perfect. It's going to be your art, which is going to be so you, so beautiful, but don't get hung up on like, it's going to be this or that. Just let it flow. Let it become what it is. Right? Inspiration hits, you go. This one, I know a lot of people who are artists and who aren't artists that tell me, in a week, I'm gonna start working on A. Or in a month, I'm gonna start working on C. In an hour, I'm gonna do this or that. They think there's a perfect time to do things. They think that in 2 hours, I'm just gonna be inspired to do this one thing. But that couldn't be farther from the truth. There's only one time, and it's right now. That is the perfect time. That is the only time where you actually can make the art, the work, whatever you want to do, right? You have to start somewhere, and that only time is right now. Don't schedule it up. Like with Bloodhounds and all that. I paused as soon as I got a little bit of inspiration going. A little bit, just the tiniest bit. I paused and I started working. Because if I would have kept watching, I can tell you guys this right now, and this has happened to me so many times. I can't count the times. I really enjoy the show. I'm really into it. Something crazy happens, and I'm so inspired. I'm so like, okay, that's fire. But then I keep watching. I don't use the inspiration. I just keep watching, which is cool, I enjoyed it. But then afterwards, I do not remember the impact that that one scene made on me. I can't really put that into words, because I felt it all then, and now's now. You're not gonna feel like you're doing right now tomorrow. I can tell you that 100%. Some days I'm happy, some days I'm still happy, but I'm a bit melancholic, We're humans, we're very, very difficult creatures. So when you feel something, use that shit, or whatever, just go for it. That's one of the most important things. I can tell you. Don't show anyone. What? I can't show my mom and my sister? What? I'm creating to show people, right? So why can't I? Well. As someone who I love showing people. Like that's, when I was a kid, I would be thinking of a dinosaur who shot a laser out his eyes, and I'd be like, Mom, Dad, you listen to this thing that I came up with. That's cool, right? That's good. You're inspired, you love what you do, and you want to share it. That is beautiful. But when you share it, that will demotivate you to actually finish it. With manga, for example. When is my manga finished? When a page is drawn. When a page is drawn, I'm finished with that part of the manga. When I write it down on the page, it's not finished. So, what happens in your body? If you write it down, that's not the final part you want to have it as. You write it down and you're like, I will draw it later. Then you go and show this page of the writing. Someone says, that's fine, that's so good, that's the greatest thing ever. You will get dopamine. You will get dopamine and feel, I'm great, I'm awesome, and then you lose all motivation to finish it. Because you're a huge motivation, at least in me, and I think in all of you, is to show it. That's a big reason of why you create. Right? It's a lot for you, but it's also so exciting to be like, look what I made. And if you've already done that, then you don't have to keep going. And that's something where, like, if we talk about people who are gaining a lot of money, right? They don't want to go back and work and such, even if they enjoy their work, they don't want to go back. It's like, oh, I got too much more money to work. But at the end of the day, it'll probably get more miserable from that, right? Same thing with the work. Yes, you finished some of it, but you're not done. Keep going. Once you're finished, then show. And you can try this, I promise. Every time you come up with an idea, share it with someone, it will just not get fun anymore. Once you keep it a secret, your own little secret, and then you wait, you have something on your hand, and then show it, that's gonna be the really fun. And then, the last one. This is what I created in the first place. Make what you want to see, right? Make what you want. Yes, it's fun to show people what they think. But I believe the only good, inspired art that we need, and that is just like straight up good art, that's art that comes from you. If you create to be able to consume something that you love, right? You might, for example, you watch an anime and it's so good, but there's certain parts you wish were different. If you make a similar anime where all those things change, I promise you, people are going to watch that and people are going to enjoy it, just in the same way you do. Because they feel the love. They feel the love put into it. And that's why when people say, oh, I create for my fans or this and that, it sounds good, it sounds nice, but I don't believe in it. I don't believe good art can be created that way. I do believe you have to with your entire heart, just pour it onto the pages. Just pour it, just create beautiful stuff for yourself. And after that, people will enjoy it. People will come around and be like, okay, this is kind of cool. Like, I see what you're doing here and here, but that will come later. Right now, just think about what you want to make. Yeah, really. And with that, Q&A. Do we have any questions about manga writing or writing in general? Yes.
What does count as filler?
Ooh, filler can be a lot, but for me, I say if the filler does not set up something to happen in the future or move the story forward, it is filler. And it's quite complicated because if you just set up a character's personality, that is moving the story forward, right? So filler can be a lot, as long as it doesn't feel to the viewer. So you gotta kind of look at it through a lens of what is not gonna get your characters and your story forward. So a character showing up and saying something can always be moving forward, right? You just gotta think, is this actually good things he's saying? Is this something he would say? Is this something that builds his character, or is it just bullshit, you know? So that's my answer to that. Thank you.
When you write stuff down when inspiration hits, do you take notes or do you record voice memos?
I always do it by writing on my phone because it's so fast on the phone, right? And I never go into detail when it strikes. When it strikes inspo, I just put loose words, a lot of words that describe what I'm feeling. It's describing what I'm trying to tell, and as for me, when inspo hits, it goes really quick in my brain. So I really have to just spit out the words, right? I never erase anything, no erasure, just letting it all out on the page, and then I go back to it and I fix around with it and such, right? So I write it out, and why I don't record, I've tried doing that, but it's a very passive learning experience, right? Because when you're listening, yes, you're taking it in, but you're not really doing anything with it. If you're reading, you're imagining it in your head, you're actively reading it, you're actively thinking about what it is, right? Listening is kind of different. So I would definitely say write it down, and also so you just have a picture of it. You can see it from A to B, and you can like hop in between and be like, oh, that's what that character does, oh, that's what that scene is gonna be like. You have a really good overview of it all. That's my answer. Thank you, Närcon. Any other questions? Yes, up there.
If you hadn't had any connections with the previous artists you worked with the first manga, how would you go about finding potential artists that you would want to collaborate with?
That's a great question. So I'm actually working on more mangas than Dafft, and none of them I'd spoken to ever before. And I'd say go on Manga Plus. It's a great website where you can upload manga for free. There's a lot of great mangakas on there. And many mangakas on there aren't really into the storytelling aspect of it. They love the art and they got beautiful art, but they're looking for someone to write with them. I found a lot of them, and I work with 2 currently from that website that is in Tabo. So go on there and just talk to people, get to know people, and it shouldn't be like straight away, be like, oh, check out this thing I wrote, do you like it, do you wanna, just build connections, right? And then that will be able to come in the future. But those people are definitely where you should start. Manga Plus, keep that in mind. Yeah, you'll find their Twitter through that website.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
How do you introduce the main villain in the story?
That is really hard, right? Because some people like to do an epic way, right? That is fire. That's not how I usually do it. I usually do it through mystery. People are talking. People are like, oh, this guy, this is a really strong guy, and so on. Like you heard, like Madara, for example, Naruto, legendary. Like that guy, I think it was 50 freaking chapters or books before he even showed his face. You know, they just kept, and it's not filler then, right? Because they're being like, oh, this guy, look out for this guy, and then he actually shows up. So it is a setup and a punchline, right? He shows up. So definitely I go the mysterious route. Because what we can't physically see or grasp or get the vibe of, that's going to be so much more scary than whatever we see on the page go in and do something, right? So that's the way I do it. Thank you for this. Yes.
What do you do when you're stuck with, like, if you are trying to make a personality for a character and you can't think of anything, or you don't want to make characters dissimilar?
I definitely go with this scenario part again.
Okay.
Because that's, and I'll go a bit more into it. It's, you put them in scenarios they probably never are going to be in the story. That are like so weird. It can be anything. Like the most crazy thing. You just think of it and you just go with it. And based on how they react, that will make you understand. And for me, sometimes it takes like 6 scenarios to truly understand. But I think that's the best way for you to really get a character going. And if you have struggle writing the same characters, then I'd say go to some animes you like, or some whatever art you like. Look at those characters and try to emulate certain parts of them. Like TF2, for example, the Scout. He's a narcissist, right? But somehow they made him lovable, a lovable narcissist. How do you do that? That's hard, you know? But if you go and look how they did it, take inspo, put them in scenarios, then you get your own characters. So yes, thank you. Okay, yes, over there.
Yes. How do you sort of go from the initial scenarios and come up with ideas to a finished story? Like, do you outline? How do you come up with the ending and stuff like that?
That's great. That's great. For me, usually, as I'm writing the scenarios and getting the hang of the characters, I actually get the ending, right? While I'm just trying the characters, somewhere along the way, the bad guy and the main guy, I see both of their endings. It just naturally comes up as you're doing the scenarios. You will start to get connections. And when you get the ending down, your beginning down, and that also comes as you're writing. Some of these scenarios will be able to be placed in the middle of the story. You will find branches as you're going. It's very hard to explain, but I promise you, as you start writing the scenarios, it will all just click to place. And I'd say get the ending, the beginning, which will come naturally through that, and 1 or 2 middle parts, and then start writing from the get-go. Because then you will know, you will let because writing is much like gardening, right? You got your flowers, you don't know exactly how they're gonna grow. You have a feeling, like that's a tomato, that's gonna grow sort of like this, but have a base, have some things in the middle, and then know where it's gonna end up. You know that you're gonna get a tomato at the end. That's what I like to keep in mind, because then it will be a very coherent story. The characters will act how, if a reader starts reading from page 1, the character will give you this certain vibe. On the final page, they'll give you the same vibe. Probably a bit different, because character development's a thing, you know, but it will still be Zoro, for example, from One Piece. Zoro is fucking Zoro in page 1, he is Zoro now. Like, we all can tell that just by looking at him and what he says. So that's how I would answer that question. Thank you so much. Any more questions? Okay. Oh, here we go.
I'm curious if you collaborate with your writing. It sounds like you write mostly on your own. What are your thoughts on, like, do you use editors and stuff before you publish something in the final, the finished part?
That's a great question, actually. I personally have no company that I'm working with, but editors is a great thing that will take you a far way, right? Because mainly experience. I've written choose your own adventure games and such. So it's a lot of me just going through it. And I actually had an editor for one of my choose your own adventure games. He taught me so much, right? So if you have the ability to have one, at least for like a year or so, like that's gonna help you a lot. But right now, I don't. But if you have the resources, it's really good. But otherwise, you can use a friend. But I wouldn't use a friend because no, don't show, like I said. If they give good critique, that is very not just, this is great, you can use it, but as soon as it becomes this dopamine, yeah, just try to stick to something professional, like someone who works with that. But yes, that works really well. Yes?
I'm curious, the summary maybe of what the characters on screen, what their story is about.
Yeah. So, let me pull up. Like I said earlier, I'm not going to tell you all about him because I know some stuff in my head that I'm never going to say to any one of you, right? I know things that height, which is the top left, that he does in his free time that you guys will never know because it's just for me, right? But we have Dafft. He is a wild motherfucker and you will not be able to tell where he's going half the time, right? He's just doing stuff, right? He's a loose cannon. How do we take care of a loose cannon main character? That is what I ask myself. Thankfully, Art, top right, he's a very cool, calm, collected character that manages to keep up, not really match the vibe of that, but he tries, you know, he tries to take care of him, even though he doesn't show it. So they very well manage to hang out, because they're polar opposites, right? We got Herc, down bottom right. He, so far in the story, you have only heard, like what I said to you about him. You've only heard about his achievements. So he's kind of a legend. I don't know how much I should go in on him, but height, top left. He is a fighter. Oh my God, I can't, I'm gonna start spoiling. There's too much, He's also semi-mysterious, right? So, I'll spoil it a little bit. Herc, bottom right, he's a final boss, right? That's why I do the mysterious thing. Hyde, he's not a final boss. So he showed himself and did a strong entrance, which some people do as the last character. It's a bit to throw you off, right? So, Hyde is a bad guy. He won last year's tournament. They're going to fight tournament. He won it. He's super cocky. He thinks he's got it in the bag. He loves Herc, by the way. Herc, bottom right. Hyde is his biggest fanboy. That was a bit of a spoiler. Still, that's Hyde. Cocky little bastard. That loves Herc. Then we got the announcer. That is the bottom left. And she's an announcer for the fighting tournament. She gets a lot of development very late on. So basically for now, she's just the announcer for the fighting tournament that they're getting into. Dafft and Bart. Yes, that's a short bit about the characters. Thank you for asking. Questions? Oh, yeah, one here.
How do you pace a story and also how do you do character development?
Okay, so with that, and I don't want to be repetitive, but like the scenarios are really where I get to know the character, how they act, but I also see a flaw in their character. And it's very good to look at a flaw of a character and try to press on that. Try to see that wound and use it against them. If someone has a really big heart, you can try to break it apart. You know, you can try to see what if that character who's so nice all the time, polar opposites. That's a great character change to a story. That's a development that can go very quick, but can be like night and day. That can make or break a story in a very cool way. Because once the character starts getting too predictable, you do want to make slight or big changes to them. So I'd say have a very when you look at that, you should know who is this character, right? Little menace motherfucker, look at him. Forever, you should try and know based on looking at him. But then as it goes, maybe he starts developing other sides as well. You should never get rid of the base, unless it's a 180 and they become the opposite of what they are. They should always have the core of them, right? But make another part of them grow, or a part of them go against itself. Like Ichigo, for example. He has this white demon inside of him. I don't know if you guys have seen Bleach, but he's got an evil side of himself that seems evil, everyone thinks it's evil, but he just gotta accept it, right? It's a part of him, he has to accept it to become stronger. That's a very like character development moment for him, because he's always just walked around being like, yeah, I'm the best, you know? But this time, he's not the best. He has someone who's himself that's like putting him on his ass. And he's gotta learn that I can't fight through this. I gotta actually just accept him and let him become a part of me, right? Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Yes. I was wondering, it sounds like you get inspiration from a lot of different places all the time. Do you ever struggle with only working on one story at a time? Or do you always bring the same inspiration to a single story and just work on that? Or do you have like start different projects all over the place?
That's a great question. Actually, throughout my entire, it's just like the last 4 years where I've become I've started thinking about the way I do things, the way I used to do things. The way I used to do things was, I would work on 100 things at once, right? I would just be like, oh, this is cool, and oh, this is cool. But I can't put that in that story, so I'm just gonna go over to that one. And then I'll work on that one later, and such. But I would say, through doing that a lot of my early career writing, that's something I try to stay away from now. And this tip that I'm about to give you is kind of crazy, because most people can't do this, but when I get an idea, I try to set out as much time as possible in a day. The next day or the same day, whatever I can, as soon as possible. Try to set out a big amount of time, and I just get out all my thoughts on the page, right? All of it. Make a good draft of it, first version of it. And then, from there on, I usually keep working on it until it becomes more, but from then on, I can step aside to different stuff. But it has to be at least 3 hours of me just sitting down and getting down everything like set in stone, right? I gotta get to know everything pretty well before I ever let myself go to another story. So with Dafft, for example, because I've written a lot that isn't on page, and when I do that, I've written the first chapter, and then I've taken a break and worked on other stuff. And then when I get back, I will set out like 5 hours to be like, now I'm gonna get a rough draft of the second one. And then I have to read that and really understand everything again, and then just smash it out, right? So I like to take it in turns. Like, okay, I'm working on this heavy now, and then bam, this one. So just to get to know everything again. Because it's very important to be in the headspace of that when I'm writing that, because otherwise characters from other stories will leak in, which is fine, but just keep the character consistent. That's very important. So yeah, that's how I work. Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Well, it's been an honor, guys. My name is Dove, and I have an artist table right behind this. So if you want to come talk to me, ask any questions, just one-on-one, talk about anything, come through. Thank you. Have a great day.